May 6, 2026. I'm Trustee Alfred Chin, and I would like to call the meeting to order. With deep gratitude and respect, we are honored and to be learning and unlearning on the ancestral and unceded land of the mushrooms, squamulation, and saber-tooth. The meeting is currently broadcast live, and both the audio and video recordings will be accessible to the public for viewing even after the meeting ends. Footage from this meeting may be viewed from Canada or anywhere else in the world. The board has a strong commitment to ethical conduct. This includes the responsibility of committee participants to conduct themselves with appropriate decorum and professionalism. It's my responsibility as the chairperson of the committee to see the decorum is maintained. I ask all participants to keep questions and comment to the content provided in the presentation or report. Before we begin, I'll ask all the participants to introduce themselves, starting on my left.
Chris Wong, Director of Instruction.
Rick Lopez, Director of Instruction.
Amy Van Vliet, Director of Instruction.
Brandon Morishita, District Principal, Social Emotional Learning, Mental Health and Prevention.
Gurpal Sohal, Acting District Principal of Equity and Anti-Oppression.
Teo Huberman, Vancouver District Students Council.
Riley McMitchell, he, him, Vancouver Elementary Principals and Vice Principals Association.
Susie Ma, Trustee and Committee Member.
Victoria Young, Trustee, she, her.
Francoise Ronet, Vase, she, her.
Bruce Garnett here for VASA.
Lois Champedley, Trustee.
Elizabeth Kleiber-Noble with DPAC.
Christopher Richardson, Trustee.
Suzette Magri, QP15.
Angie Haveman, VASA.
Allison Ogden, Associate Superintendent, she, her.
Janice Myers, Associate Superintendent, she, her.
Pedro de Silva, Associate Superintendent, he, him.
Maureen McRae Stanger, Associate Superintendent, she, her.
Rochita Recorder, she, her.
Thank you. We now move the agenda to the evening. We have one item for approval and one item for information on the evening's agenda. Our Associate Superintendent, Pedro de Silva, to present item 1.1, School Codes of Conduct, Personal Digital Device.
Okay, good evening, everyone. If we can go to the next slide. Just as a recap, I think most folks are aware, 2024, the Ministry of Education asked school districts to look at personal digital device and the restrictions. And they focused in on reducing distractions in classroom, foster online safety, and promote consistency in the province. And that was about 2 years ago. And so I'm going to share a bit of an update today on some of the work that's been going on in the district to try to support the initiative. After the presentation, there'll be a facilitated discussion time where trustees will be able to listen to folks around the table on their perspectives. After that is done, we will come back and share the motion, and then there'll be a process that will be guided by the chair. If we can go to the next slide. So, I mean, the timeline is just an indicator for folks to give you a sense of the work that's been going on over the last couple of years. I'm going to go into detail in some of these items. I am here sharing this report predominantly as a support for the motion that was passed at the February Open Board. Next slide. We are in the second year of implementation. Last year we did check-ins with students, staff, and parents. And we followed up this year with some of the key takeaways from last year. If you go to the next slide. So last year, the takeaways after having some engagement was that, the folks were looking for improved consistency and clarification of communication. They wanted additional professional development and resources. They looked for external expertise and see if we can group with folks to come in and support the system. And the equitable access technology was identified as an area. Next slide. I was trying to figure out a metaphor that kind of works with this topic. I think that I would say that I don't think there's a person in this room that doesn't acknowledge and understand the impact of technology, particularly around social media companies and the algorithms and how they've been wired to draw attention and distract us from learning, whether that's our students or our adults. I would say in many instances, most recently, I've seen that sometimes the behavior of adults is actually worse than the students that attend sessions I'm in. So I do think that I feel like collectively we understand that we were not attuned to the impact, nor did we lean in to work with young people to prepare them for the resilience that they needed to be able to self-regulate themselves and to focus in on learning. What I feel sometimes is the how we go about trying to address this. And sometimes there are tactics or approaches that feel like they are ways to address something that has happened, but they can have sometimes unintended consequences. I feel that sometimes restrictions and bans have some effectiveness. They definitely do. But a lot of times I feel that's just the smoke, and it's something that we actually kind of tried to clear away. And it doesn't actually address necessarily the fire that's actually underneath and the things that need to get done in the system. What I'm going to share with you is a district approach that tried to address the fire and some of the complexities that we need to address and continue through education with young people. I would say also from my experience in talking with parents, students, families, educators, when we focus our attention on bans and restrictions, inevitably we lose our own sense of responsibility, our individual things that we have to do. Very rarely have I heard folks talk about what their individual responsibility is, whether you're a parent, an educator, or a student. And ultimately, the way forward is actually to kind of talk about that because the way that we're going to move forward with this complex topic is that we first have to understand what we have in terms of control and how we can help young people collectively to support them through this process. Can we go to the next slide, please? So when we went about this work, we really felt this was a shared responsibility with schools, teachers, administrators, support staff, and with students and families. Next slide. And it's really complex. I feel anyone that simplifies this is really not doing a service to actually how complex this topic is. And for us, we tend to focus a lot of our attention on the mental health of our students, online safety, digital literacy, and equity. I'll talk a little bit about all of these in a sec. Next slide. I know Brandon's doing a bit of a presentation on this, but I want to also make very clear that we have students who have addictive personalities for many issues, and digital devices is definitely one. We have avenues for them to seek support. We have counselors. We have alternative programs that allow us to support kids and treat some of these symptoms to help them be able to focus some of the work. And sometimes what gets lost in this conversation is that this is actually part of the general supports that we do in public education. We work very hard to understand who are the students that need additional support in this area and try to find out how we can support them. Next slide. We work very closely with the Ministry of Education with online safety. We have a Safe and Caring Schools team. We will and have shared many posters, lots of websites. People can report incidents. And there's a lot of resources that are coming out to try to address the ongoing concern around students' use of devices and their safety. Next slide. Equity and accessibility is also part of this equation. For many families in our district, we know that the only device that they have is a device that's given to them by their parents. We also know that the only access they have to Wi-Fi is the one that's attached to schools. And I think if you go to many of our schools in some areas of Vancouver, this is very much a reality for some of our families. We also know that for many of our students, the devices that have technology are also break some of the accessibility barriers. So it's really complicated when we're working through the personal digital device restriction. Next slide. We're aware in schools. Oh, that's great. There we go. We're back. Thank you. We're very aware there are many school administrators and staffs that have really focused in on different strategies at the school level. There are schools that in second semester who revisited the importance of focusing students' attentions and staff on helping students with their helping the students to focus in on their responsibility they have to use technology effectively and keep them on task in their learning. We have Fit for Learning sessions that we just recently did on True Detectives, which again is a little bit focused on the digital literacy thing. I do want to emphasize this because I'm not going to articulate the work that actually is happening at many of the schools and the different various attentions, but we do know that that is happening. Next slide. We hired, and thanks to the board a couple of years ago, Christina Walker, and there's been ongoing support and workshops and opportunities for folks to engage in digital literacy, AI and co-pilot support. And there's been a pretty comprehensive approach to providing as many resources as we can for staff. Next slide. We have partnered up with UBC to work with teacher candidates around the digital pedagogy and AI cohort. We also have a critical digital literacy project with about 50 teachers where they're collaborating together on a nine or 7-part series around how to be informed on helping students with their online safety. Next slide. We, on our hub, have resources for folks, such as the Healthy Digital Habits, which provides lesson plans, structured guidelines, practical tips, and interactive activities. Next slide. Now, supporting families. Through the VSB After the Bell, we've had companies come in and talk to families. We've reached up to over 70,060 families over the last year and a half to try to educate families on strategies to deal with some of the digital literacy. And this has actually been really quite successful, actually, the amount of attention that's come from families. I do believe that parents are really needing support and understanding how to support their children with the use of technology. Next slide. Most recently, we had family focus groups, and we engaged in small group discussions with them. I know that our communications team will be coming out with a summary very shortly. But we did hear we did ask for feedback around personal digital device restrictions, AI, and how we can communicate best with families. Next slide. There are more family opportunities coming up. There's a Building Better Tech Habits by Media Smarts, which is coming in June. And we continue to update the family sessions and the Safer Schools Together site for resources for parents. Next slide. Now, probably my favorite part of this is the involvement of students. We did survey close to 4,700 students. We brought together students and created a cohort group, and I'm going to share a little bit about some of the work that's been done over the last year or so. Next slide. This is very interesting. So they have an active group, and we asked our team to pull what are some of the things that they're actively engaging in conversation. And as you can see from the list, I think our students are really aware of the support and the collaboration they need with educators on how to help them about putting phones down, managing digital technology. So this gives you a snapshot into what students are talking about and how they're approaching the topic of personal digital devices. Next slide. This by far was my favorite session of the year. We had this in November where 17 of the 18 high schools were there, and students created this learning session. And there were two main topics, and they selected them. One was debating on AI in secondary schools, and there was a speaker panel, social media imbalance, where they got to listen to social media influencers. Some of them are actually high school students, and educators on how to appropriately use social media. It was one of the most outstanding sessions I've seen. I think we should bring them in and guide some of our own learning sessions. Next slide. This is what it looked like. This is just, yeah, I can't say enough about that day. Next slide. Just most recently, we brought together of those students, 63 students, and worked them through some activities. We did want to ask them, like, what is it that you're using technology for? And their number one thing is communication and connect with family and friends. The second thing was engaging and learning, and the third part was the entertainment or brain break. So that's what the students recognized or identified as what they are using. And there is a study from Media Smarts with the young Canadians in a wireless world that kind of substantiates that students are moving from seeing their devices as a toy to more of a tool in terms of how they interact in learning. Next slide. There is ongoing work. This is not stopping. And I think maybe to what I was speaking about earlier is that education and focusing in on digging into the relationships the teachers have with their students, the principals have with their staff, that's messy work. This is a complex topic and is one that we're going to have to continually to work at and to help educate our kids so they become socially responsible students and they're able to manage their own time. And it's something I think collectively we all should probably focus on a little bit as well, as I mentioned earlier in terms of the adults. Next slide. Okay, so that's the end of the presentation. Hopefully that gives you some insight onto some of the work that's been going on in the district. I would say that that I'm actually quite proud of the work that has been going on. I think this is a complex topic. I also appreciate the attention that has been drawn to this. For us to have this conversation is really important. I appreciate that the provincial government has drawn attention to this work, and I think it's important that we continue to talk about this because it is ongoing and really complicated work to support young people. And it will get a little bit more complicated, I think, with the emerging technologies that are coming. So I think this is over to the chair. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Petro. So we will now move to a small group discussions. I'll ask Associate Superintendent Petro da Silva to introduce the discussion, sorry.
Thank you. And as I mentioned, I thought we would go over the board motion that's coming today. So would you like to just read it, or would you like me to read it out loud? I think if you just take a look and read it, I would say to maybe help you as you read and listen to me at the same time is the biggest difference between this and the existing one is that we want to extend the requirement that used to be just in elementary all the way to high school. So when we put away the device assignment out of sight for the entire school year, that is something we had with elementary schools. That was not what we did with secondary schools. So that is the difference. Next slide. You're going to go into small group discussions. After that, I think the chair's the recommendations, and this is where we'll rely on all those Robert's Rules, Peoples, and Procedure stuff. I will defer to that a little bit later. Could we get to the next slide? So what we're going to ask is that we put generally discussion topics as a guide for you at the table and for you to share what your feelings are around potentially the clarifications of the motion. What are some of the questions? What are the implications that we feel about the motion? And then what's your perspective or insight? We're going to have 3 recorders at each table. We're going to give you 10 minutes. At the end of that, they will report out. So for everyone who's listening live, we're going to go offline. When we come back, we'll share out the summary of the discussion, and then the trustees will engage in the recommendation process. Okay, thank you. So at this moment, we're going to be going offline, and if those of you are online listening, please go grab a cup of coffee. We'll be back in approximately 10 minutes. Thank you.
Point of
All right, so like, can we have some report out from each group? Thank you.
Thank you through the chair. So our group had a conversation, first of all, trying to really fully understand what the original motion was asking. We know that currently the motion that we passed last year was to make sure that our elementary students, K to 7, their phones had to be out of sight and silent during the school day. And the new motion is recommending that this happen K to 12, meaning that our secondary students would not be able to have their phones out and available during the day. The current policy now for secondary students is that they may use their device in the classroom under the direction and guidance of their teacher for learning opportunities, and they also can have their cell phone with them during break time and lunchtime and use it during those times in school. So we talked a bit about clarifying just the current motion and the previous motion from last year. We talked a little bit about the need sometimes for students to have that cell phone. We talked a little bit about, if there's a student schedule change during the day, the student might need to contact their parents for an earlier pickup time, et cetera, and they need to be able to access their phone. We talked a little bit about students who might have be a child in care or have any custody issues with families, and that the phone is really a safety device for them, and making sure they can access that is important. We talked a little bit about, what it looks like during the school day, and if it would extend beyond the school day, if there was a sporting event or a field trip. So how do we manage that phone access for our secondary students during those times? We also talked a little bit about, who is the educator in the motion, and we kind of concluded that really that is teachers, support staff, administrators are all responsible to support students if we were going to have this type of restriction up to grade 12. We also talked a little bit about, are we looking to help to educate our students and how to best use cell phones and their devices, or are we really focusing on enforcement, and that can be a challenge for us. And we also talked about, a really good point was made that we might want to really focus more on the existing motion and plan and making sure we're implementing that appropriately before taking more drastic steps. That was some feedback from some students. And, concerns that we don't want to have to be focusing on that enforcement piece, but really around the education piece. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. The next group.
Thank you through the chair. The conversation at the table highlighted that there's definitely support for the intent of the motion, recognizing the need to further support students around personal digital device use in terms of like the implications that they're having on mental health and the distraction of youth from education, but the discussion also talked about the how and the logistics of the implementation being a real question in terms of, we don't have the staffing really that would support being able to supervise the number of students that we have at secondary schools at breaks and lunches, and that storage solutions are really expensive and would make it really prohibitive to be able to have students have their devices away. The discussion involved parent education, because the discussion was not all parents universally agree that they do not want their children to be unreachable and not have access to phones during the day. So how we support parents in something like this would also be really important. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Next group.
Thank you through the chair. Our conversation really was based a lot on what the other two report outs indicated. We talked a lot. We had a lot of questions around the logistics of it. Talked a lot about the implementation and what that might look like. We did have a discussion around equity and if all students do have access to personal devices, and so talked about the approved digital devices in schools versus their own personal device. We did talk about defining explicit permission in the motion so that that was a little bit more clear on who would provide that explicit permission. We also talked about how student voice would be really an important piece to supporting a rollout or implementation. And I think finally the last piece was because it is already in elementary schools, it might be easier for implementation in the coming years if that motion, if it did move from K to 12.
All right, thank you. So now we would like to take some questions. I do see some questions around, and then if anyone have any questions to be clarified, you can ask those questions.
So, sorry, just to clarify, this is the question period for the report, or is it for the motion?
For the report.
No question then.
Thank you through the chair to Pedro and team. I'm just wondering the amount of resources that went into you producing the report. You had a lot of input and I thought it was great, and I'm wondering what sort of repeatability or what resources would be required for repeatability of the information you gathered.
I think maybe can you frame your question in a different way?
Sure. So you provided information earlier about some feedback from educators, and I'm wondering, it was wonderful. It provided a lot of great context to what we're discussing, and I'm, from a governance perspective, I'm wondering how repeatable that would be, because it would be great to get that sort of information on an ongoing basis. As a trustee, I'm just wondering how that would, what sort of, how much resource was put toward gathering all the information, and is it something that you know would be an easy task? I'm just asking from a trustee perspective. Thanks.
Thank you for the clarification. I mean, I can't speak on behalf of all folks, but generally when we present or prepare information for trustees, it is quite a comprehensive process. So in the example here, there were multiple staff members that collated information, brought together work. There was reach out that directors did to schools. We wanted to be as thorough as possible and to represent what was happening in the field. So I think to do our due diligence and to also respect the time of trustees, I do think we do put quite a bit of effort and energy into presenting these reports.
Follow-up, Chair? Thanks. So would you see this being feasible on an annual basis for the board, just as an information gathering piece to help inform decisions?
I think that if the board decides that this is a priority for them, then I think we would absolutely make time and we can collate the information or present the information.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Question to Pedro through the chair. You mentioned that there are supports available for students who might be struggling with their use of cell phones. And I'm just wondering where particularly elementary teachers might be able to find what kinds of supports might be available to them. Because I'm wondering in high school, it seems like there's more of a team in the high school that might be there to support, whereas elementary teachers might be looking to get support from outside of the school itself.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I would say generally there's many avenues of access to support. Your principals would be one for sure, where they can work with our district team. We have some folks in this room now that provide some support around that. We have area counselors, and I would say in secondary, a lot of the needs are identified by folks who are closest to the ground. That would be the school counselors, the administrators, and the team meetings that happen. And at elementary, it would be the same way. But generally, if our elementary teachers need support, I would first reach out to the principal, who then can leverage all the resources we have to support them.
Thank you. Any more questions? I see no questions. Can I take a 5-minute recess? And then the meeting will be resumed at 5:50. I can see 5:53 or 5:54. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, 5. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
1.
Right now we are back at 5:55. I'm prepared to proceed and look to committee trustee on whether they would like to recommend one of the 3 motion lists on page 5 of the agenda package to the board or for May 27, 2026 public board meetings. Now, feedback from our facilitator discussion indicate that committee member and representatives are in favor recommend of option 3, no motion required. That the Education Plan Committee recommend that the board not proceed with consideration of the motion as current policy and practice are assessed to be sufficient to address student use of personal digital device, and further board direction is not necessary at this time. And can I see the vote from the trustee, from the committee member? All in favor? So Susie,
Chair,
yes.
Do we not have an opportunity to have a discussion here right now, because there's are different stakeholders and they might want to provide some advice or comments? I know that we did it in small groups, but I think that there might be other questions or comments, and I think that that's sort of normally our practice. When we look at the motion, then there's comments, and then the trustees who are on the committee get to decide whether or not to go forward or not. Is that something we can entertain? If other people have any questions or comments?
Thank you, Susie. I think like we asked about the questions before, right? So like I don't see any other questions before. So that's why like based on the feedback, I think I recommended, like, I mean, based on the feedback from what we had, I think what I hear is like, well, there's lots of concerns on option 1. And then so that's why like, well, look, sounds like option 3. Well, I'm just like recommending option 3. So like, so want to see like if you guys want to vote in favor or like vote not in favor, then we can go for other options.
Chair, so my understanding of what we were doing prior to this was that the floor was open for questions about the report that was given and not questions about the actual motions or the options that are in front of us. So I would like to have an opportunity to have a discussion about the options before we go forward with recommending or not.
So maybe I'll ask staff to clarify what this motion means. Is that like, is that what you want to hear?
No, my understanding is that the process that we're in is that when we reconvened, we had a report out from the different groups about this motion, and then there was an opportunity from the people here to ask questions about the report itself, but not the actual motions or the options. So that's why I'm suggesting that maybe, Chair, if you would allow for questions and comments about these specific options before we decide on one over the other.
Okay, sure. Thank you, Susie. Thank you, Sima. So what other, any of discussion or questions? Thank you.
Hi, yeah, thank you. Question for the chair, I suppose. I'm curious about option 2, refinements required before board consideration. So if, for example, we felt that, like in secondary, there shouldn't be a ban on the use of phones during breaks, would that be something that would fall under the recommendation of option 2? Or, you know, like I'm just wondering, yeah, because option 3 to me sounds like you're saying we don't need a motion about this at all. And option 1 is take the motion exactly as is. And then option 2 would be we need to make amendments to the motion. Is that correct?
So like, yes, if you for option 2 is like, sounds like it's like if you have to make some changes on the current motion, yes, then then we do go for option 2. Questions? Yes.
Sorry, I had a question about the policy itself. Could that be asked right now instead? I know that it's not about the options themselves. Is that applicable?
No, sorry. Any other questions? If no questions, then I will go for the recommendations. Trustee Ma, your questions? Trustee
May
Yong?
I? Sorry, I just have a question. I'm wondering why there are no questions to be asked about the current policy, and maybe it's to clarify. In the body of the motion, it references what the policy is for K to 7. So I'm wondering perhaps if that was the question around the policy, or why we couldn't have a discussion right now on things that are going to impact what we're looking to recommend. And maybe this, I don't know if this is a question for you, Pedro, or for the chair, but I'm just wondering why the discussion is, I feel as though it's not being facilitated, where it's as if it's being limited. And perhaps that's my personal view.
Sorry, what kind of questions you want to ask or discuss?
I would like clarification as to why we can't ask questions about the current policy. And perhaps I'm looking around to look at my peers for whether or not I'm misspeaking, but I'm just wondering why discussion is not happening.
Okay, so like, what's the question then?
My question is why we cannot ask questions around the current, about the
so
policy.
let's say I'm allowing you to ask question, then what's your question?
Okay, then I'd like to defer back to the stakeholder group for the VDSC who's looking to ask questions around the current policy, if I might.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Through the chair, student phone use is a real problem and policies exist to address it. Though these regulations are not consistently applied, they are in effect and have a concrete enforcement framework. Could we consider enforcing current phone use rules to their full extent instead of moving forward with this proposal?
So anyone want to comment?
Unprivileged chair, can we ask the student rep to identify themselves?
Yes, through the chair, it's Theo Huberman, Vancouver District Students Council.
Thank you. So anyone want to comment on these questions or want to start discussion on this?
Thank you, Chairperson. I'm wondering if I could ask you through the chair to Pedro. I'm wondering if you are aware of, or perhaps it could come at a later time, where you know there are gaps in enforcement. Do you know of, and or can you provide us with that information?
I think in an education system, we try to avoid words like enforcement as just a thing. I would say that I think that, as I mentioned earlier, I think what is challenging a lot of times is the interactions that happen at the school level. And it's tough work when there are folks who are distracted and folks have to lean into those aspects to help students regulate themselves. And at times, how schools approach it, how consistently they approach it varies sometimes, and how people feel in terms of addressing that is also varied. Where it's worked really well is when school principals have worked with their staffs and they have a collective approach about how to support the messaging around the restrictions. I do think in the context of like enforcing, say, the proposed motion at secondary schools, there are some challenges, and that was mentioned out in the share out already, so I think repeating them is not worth repeating, but there definitely are some challenges to it. But there are also important things that we need to be attuned to, and having collective strategy to work with kids to keep them on task is something that I would always encourage the schools continue to do on an ongoing basis.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yes, Theo Huberman, VDSC. Through the chair, I have a question perhaps for Trustee Young, the mover of this motion. If this policy is approved, the motion states that implementation guidelines would be created, quote, in collaboration with school leaders. However, there's no guarantee as to whether students would participate, let alone whether their concerns could be addressed there. Can you elaborate, please, on what this collaboration might entail?
Through, to VDSC, through the chair, our student body is a formal stakeholder group in all the decisions that we make, which is why there's always a standing seat at every committee, because student voice is very important to the decisions that we make. As all topics that go to committee have a seat for VDSC, and we welcome information gathered from students to help inform the decisions that the board makes.
I do have a follow-up, Chair. Permissible?
Thank you.
Again, to the mover. Through the chair, I understand that the superintendent would be tasked with creating the implementation plan. Based on this, would it go to committee where it would be formally considered with all the stakeholder groups, or is this something which would be strictly within the purview of the superintendent's office? Thank you.
Trustee Young?
Are we able to get the motion on, oh wait, sorry, it's there. Draft intent. Sorry, that's the recommendation. Is the original motion? Oh, you have.
Can we go back to page 5, the our board motions?
So the reason why it's written like this is because the board has only one employee, and so everything that we ask to be done by staff goes through the superintendent, which is why you see our motions written the way they are quite often. Sometimes it looks like we put a lot of pressure on one person, and we do, quite frankly, because they are responsible for almost 8,000 employees, and so that is why we direct everything to go through the superintendent.
Thank you, Trustee Young. Any follow-up questions?
Sorry, just to clarify, through the chair, would this mean that students, as part of a formal stakeholder approval process, would be given the opportunity to provide feedback on this policy if approved?
I'm going to defer to Pedro, and if you could perhaps clarify through the chair a little bit more on this. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, I would say just Theo, the superintendent, when the board asks the superintendent then determines the strategies and implementation of the board motion. So as you've heard tonight, as part of our implementation, we did reach out to students and gather voice and do all that kind of work. So generally, the role actually and the questions would be directed to the superintendents. And I can tell you, based on our presentation, that we did gather a lot of voice. And if we were to follow up with any other processes, we would definitely reach out to students and hear from them. Okay?
All right, thank you. Any questions? Oh, Trustee Ma, yes.
Yeah, so my question through the chair to staff. So there was a review on year 1. So surveys were done, focus groups were done, and that was with the original motion that was passed the year before. So this motion that is before us now, has there been work done with the stakeholder groups and with the students to find out what their thoughts are on this motion?
Yeah, so if I didn't articulate that in the presentation, so we have ongoing conversations with stakeholders in the organization, whether it be principals, we hear lots from teachers, through our principals, and we do engage students on an ongoing basis, and those students are derived from the original survey, and those students have been part of co-creating learning sessions and also provide ongoing feedback on personal digital devices.
Thank you.
I have a follow-up. Thank you. So my follow-up is, in terms of the group of students that we continue to engage, how many students have been involved so far?
That's a great question. So I believe there were up to 100 students in the November session. There were 63 students that are in that focus group that we most recently have completed. And I can't give you the total number that we surveyed, but I think there were about 4,000 students approximately that we actually heard from the original survey.
Okay, so I guess my comment to that is that I know we have approximately 20,000 secondary students, and so 4,000 plus 63, that's quite a small percentage of the population. So it would have been good to hear from more students, and this was based on the groups in the past, and we know that there are new students, new grade 8s that have joined our cohort, and I would have liked to have heard from what those students and how they feel about this motion that's before us.
All right, Mitchell.
Yeah, thank you, Trustee Ma. I would say also, I did forget to mention that we do also collect through our student learning survey questions that are specifically targeted for this question, and that student learning survey does reach out to many more students. So we do gather feedback that way from them. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next question.
Thank you, through the chair. It's Elizabeth Kleiber-Noble at DPAC. I was just wondering the wording here and how the code of conduct currently is, how it aligns with other school districts, if that was looked into at all, or if that impacts.
Yes, I would say in my educational experience, when this got rolled out, it was relatively, the timeline was at the same time. So we had multiple conversations with metro districts. And generally speaking, I think the language is relatively the same. I think there's some nuancings, but when we first went through this process, we spoke with many districts about how this would roll out and what was the language that was used.
Follow up.
Thank you. And then the wording of this is also kind of aligned with other school districts, or is it kind of a new thing?
So the only difference between this one, so this is almost mirroring what we've done in elementary schools. I would say generally speaking, that's where most districts are, but not all. The secondary one doesn't put the restrictions during the breaks or lunchtime. And that's pretty common also, I would say in most of them, but I'd have to go look back and I can't do that right now in terms of off memory.
Thank you. Next questions.
I have a question through the chair to Pedro. I noticed that the last focus group that you talked about was in November, and I recall that the student learning survey was before this policy proposal came before the board, and I'm wondering if there are any current or planned or ongoing student or stakeholder engagement opportunities specific to this policy. What the stakeholders think of this policy, I think that would be valuable to know before a decision is reached.
Okay, yes, sorry again, maybe I didn't communicate well. So we just most recently last month met with 63 students that provided feedback, and currently the students are completing the student learning surveys now, and we don't get that information till later this year, but then we will get that information from this current group of students. Okay.
All right, thank you for the clarification.
Thank you. Any other questions? Last questions, maybe? I think we have a meeting after 6:30, right? Okay, yeah. All right. So one last question.
In that case, I have one last unrelated question. Perhaps this would be to Pedro as well. So through the chair, I find that this policy proposal does not exactly address how phones have become essential for personal and academic use. At lunch, during breaks, and in class, students are expected to check communication apps like Teams and access online assignments. How can we expect this phone ban to function when personal digital devices are used more and more at school?
Thank you. So I was like, are the trustee ready? I'm just like still going back to the recommended motions to vote. So here from all the feedback, there's like from all the groups, right? So recommending options 3, no motion required. That the Education Plan Committee recommend the board not proceed with consideration of the motion as current policy and practice are set to be sufficient to address student use of personal digital device. And further board direction is not necessary at the time. All in favor? Okay, just myself. Against? So Christopher, Lewis. Okay, sorry. So right now I'm looking for the trustee for the committee group to vote for options 3, whether you agree or not. All right. So like, can I ask again? All in favor for this motion to recommend option 3? No. And who against? All right. Lewis Chamberlain, Christopher, and abstain.
Sorry, Trustee Ma here. So I'm unclear of what's going on. So, Chair, have you moved option 3? Is that what's happened?
Yes, we moved option 3.
You've moved it. Has it been seconded?
Do we need a second for this one, for the committee? So I do recommend option 3, but if you guys not agree that, we can move to other options. Sorry, Christopher.
Chair, just a point of order. Generally, at this stage, in terms of committee, is that we're looking for a consensus in terms of recommendations to proceed or not. So maybe it's in that basis that, or are you hoping to frame it to, we'll throw a trial balloon of recommendation 3, see if it works, and then we'll go from there. Is that your intent?
Yes. All right, so all the trustee committee member, you guys ready? All right, so when we go back to trustee Ma, you ready?
What am I supposed to be ready for?
Vote in favor for this option or against it.
So you're suggesting that we look at option 3, is that correct?
Yes, if later on, if you decided not to vote in favor, then we go to other options.
Okay, so I am opposed to option 3. Thank you.
Okay, and Christopher, you're against, right? You're against option 3, right?
My inkling is that recommendation option 2 for a little bit more clarification or refinement on the impact of certain student groups that from a safety reason or because of student needs, and it's that time, be it lunchtime or break time, or if I'm on a fit block? Anyway, are there some accommodation for those student needs and what the implication of that? It may be that the advice is that it's all or nothing. And so that's why I would recommend recommendation option 2, which was a refinement or just that would amount to be a clarification in terms of those that this all or nothing motion.
Thank you. Fair enough.
Address.
So let's go to vote for recommendation option 2. That the Education Plan Committee recommend that the board defer consideration of the motion at this time and request additional refinements to be made and to clarify key elements of the proposed direction in order to support informed board decision making. All those in favor? Sorry, Trustee Ma.
Chair, can I speak to option 2?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. So I think it is important to take some more time to look at this motion and what it could possibly mean. We've heard from our student rep here that there are some concerns about this and some other questions from other stakeholders that we should probably take our time with this. I believe that at the end of the day, we will come out with something that is good for our students, that keeps our students safe, that promotes digital literacy, But I believe that we need to take a little bit more time. So I would support option 2.
All right, thank you. So all those in favor of option 2? All right, unanimously. So this will go to the board with recommendation to the Education Plan Committee in support of this motion. Do we have enough time for the next section? Okay, sorry. If there's no further questions, we'll move to the next item on the agenda, Framework for Enhancing Student Learning, FASA Human and Social Development Update. I'll ask Associate Superintendent Marie McGray-Stinker to introduce item 3.1, Framework for Enhancing Student Learning, Human and Social Development Updates, and other members of the senior leadership team to present on equity and anti-oppression and mental health and social and emotional learning.
Thank you so much through the chair. Next slide, please. We're continuing our work to explain more about our framework for enhancing student learning and updating you today. We know we've got 3 key areas in FESL. One is around intellectual development, the next is human and social development, and the third is career development. So tonight we've got members of our team here who are going to be focusing on that human and social development aspect. We know this is foundational to student success and support in our schools. Next slide, please. So the goals around supporting students to feel connected and safe and belonging within their school really is work that is central to both schools and our district. And the work is embedded in our school learning plans and in the daily life of all students in our schools. It's supported by a variety of district teams and departments, and it's foundational to all student success. It's ongoing work across the district. So this evening we have 2 teams here with you tonight. They're going to be providing some short presentations. The first team is going to be talking about equity and anti-oppression and the work they've been doing to support students. We will then move into a presentation from mental health and social and emotional learning. At the end of both presentations, there'll be a chance for questions from the committee members and the stakeholders and rights holders who are here. So we look forward to welcoming our first presentation and having Christopher Wong and Rick Lopez, Director of Instruction, begin with equity and anti-oppression. Next slide, please.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Christopher Wong, Director of Instruction, and I'll be presenting alongside Rick Lopez, my colleague, Director of Instruction. We're here today to provide an update on the work of the Equity and Anti-Oppression Department. Our purpose today is to highlight the work that has been underway this year, work that is being carried out collaboratively across the district, and to make visible the impact that this work is having for students, staff, and school communities. Next slide, please. Oh, back to one. Thank you. So this slide here anchors the work you'll see today. The VSB's Equity and Anti-Oppression Framework guides how we collectively strengthen learning environments that are culturally responsive, honor diversity, and ensure a sense of belonging for everyone. The environments we strive for include exposure to more varied viewpoints and positions, increased cultural awareness, knowledge, and understanding, acknowledgement and understanding of intersectionality, reduced stereotypes, enhanced ability to adapt successfully to change, and the development of collective values and ethical standards through humble reflection. These are essential conditions for meaningful learning in diverse school communities. We are sharing today the work that is grounded in this framework. Next slide, please. This framework shapes also how we work alongside our schools. Our interactions are student-centered. They are practices and decisions that are based on what is best for students. They are grounded in inquiry, where we replace judgment with curiosity to understand structures and their impact on relationships and learning. They also involve accountable space. Everyone gives and takes space justly so that everyone can see themselves in the journey. And they're also action-oriented. We learn through the process of doing, and mistakes are met with continued support to try again. Importantly, our practices seek to be embedded into the school day, and they're not treated as standalone lessons or events. Next slide, please. This slide here highlights student leadership in action. The student-led DEI Youth Conference brings secondary students together from across the district for a full day of learning. Students determine the theme, they make decisions, and they implement the event themselves. This year's theme is Amplifying Story, and it was chosen by students to ensure that voices that are often underrepresented in public spaces are centered and heard. In years past, our report would have provided details on the conference. However, the original date for this year's conference coincided with the first anniversary of the Lapu Lapu Day tragedy, and our conference was moved to June to create space for community. Next slide, please. The Story Studio is another example of elevating student voice, particularly the elementary learners. This year's theme was joy. Students explored joy as an emotion, as personal expression, and as a collective experience within community. The intention is to create spaces where students see themselves reflected positively in their learning, supporting engagement, well-being, and a strong sense of belonging. Next slide, please. At the secondary level, we focus on expanding student voice and access through curriculum. The EAO department has worked to increase enrollment in locally developed courses, the Queer and Trans History of BC 12 course and the History of African Descent 12 course. Access to these courses has been streamlined and standardized for the 2026-27 school year, reducing barriers for students across the district to enroll in these courses. Enrollment has grown, reflecting both student interest and the impact of clearer, more equitable access. Next slide, please. This slide highlights one of our key collaborative structures. The EAO Working Group brought together 36 participants throughout the course of the school year. These included 25 elementary and secondary students and 11 VSB employee group stakeholders, including teachers, school-based administrators, and district staff. Using a strategic thinking process that centers shared values, the group focused on truth and reconciliation, racism and discrimination, and identity and belonging. The goal is to provide thoughtful, student-informed recommendations to the district to increase equity. The group's final meeting is going to be on May the 12th, where recommendations will be consolidated and finalized. Next slide, please. This next slide here speaks to targeted student support. Students from across the district participated in the Black Futures program at UBC throughout this school year. The program supports Black students in developing confidence and familiarity with post-secondary pathways. We want to acknowledge and thank Dr. Joanne Anakworu, our district resource teacher and History of African Descent 12 teacher, whose leadership helped make this opportunity possible for students during this current school year. I'll now turn things over to Rick, who will speak towards learning resources.
Thank you, Chris. I'll begin here by highlighting the work that's taken, next slide, please. I'll begin here by highlighting the work that's taken place to support teachers directly. Over the past year, the Equity and Anti-Oppression team has developed a series of curriculum-aligned resource kits that are now available for borrowing by all VSB teachers. These kits are designed to reduce the preparation burden on educators while increasing access to high-quality, thoughtful learning resources that support equity-focused conversations in classrooms. The kits span a range of identity and experience-based areas, including queer and SOGI inclusive learning, Black history and experience year-round, anti-Indigenous racism, displacement and refugee experiences, Sikh identity, and upstander community agreements. This work supports teachers to engage students in meaningful learning while ensuring consistency and care in how complex topics are approached. Next slide, please. Another significant milestone this year was the publication of the School Support for Trans and Gender Diverse Students Guide. This is an internal staff resource designed to support consistent, informed, and compassionate practices across schools. The guide outlines key areas such as students' rights to self-determination, confidentiality and privacy, names and pronouns, navigating MyEd and gender markers, and participation in physical education, athletics, and field studies. It also addresses access to private washrooms and change room facilities. Overall, the guide supports school teams in responding thoughtfully and consistently to ensure trans and gender diverse students experience safety, belonging, and full participation in school life. Next slide, please. In addition to physical resource kits, the district invested in licensed Black history resources through BLK, an origin story developed by Hungry Eyes Media. This year focused on resource acquisition and professional learning in advance of a district-wide release. Providing learning for educators ahead of implementation was an intentional strategy to build confidence, context, and readiness before these materials are widely used in classrooms. District-wide access to the resource began at the start of Black History Month in 2026, supporting sustained and meaningful engagement with Black history in Canada. Next slide. The EAO department has also continued targeted school-specific supports and workshops. This work happens both proactively in response to incidents of racism in school communities. The goal is to deepen staff understanding of their responsibility to respond and to build confidence and capacity to respond in ways that are meaningful, educational, and supportive of students. This approach recognizes that schools are at different places in their learning and that responsive support strengthens both staff practice and school culture. Next slide, please. Equity scans continue to be an important part of system-level equity work. Through a 3-session learning series with consultant Natasha Raju, secondary schools examine their learning resources through an equity and literacy lens. To date, 14 of 18 secondary schools have completed equity scans over the past 2 years. We are planning to continue this with the remaining schools next year. This work is guided by Goldie Muhammad's book, Unearthing Joy, and focuses on creating library and classroom collections where students can see themselves meaningfully represented. The scan supports both literacy development and equity by ensuring learning materials reflect diverse voices, identities, and experiences. Next slide, please. This slide brings together our work on responding to discrimination across the district. Over the past year, there has been a strong focus on strengthening clarity, consistency, and confidence in how schools respond when incidents occur. VSB's three-prong approach provides a clear framework for this work. It centers the needs of individuals or groups who have been harmed, applies a belonging focus and restorative lens, and ensures accountability while maintaining dignity for all involved. When patterns of harm or inequity are identified, the approach intentionally moves beyond individual incidents to focus on system-level learning and transformation. Continued implementation of AP 174 Appendix A across the district has given staff and administrators a clearer process to follow, one that is structured, consistent, and grounded in relational practice rather than solely compliance. As a result of these shared structures and ongoing learning, school leaders are reporting increased confidence in managing incidents of discrimination, supported by district-level guidance and collaboration. This work reflects our commitment not only to responding when harm occurs, but to strengthening the conditions that foster belonging and accountability over time. In closing, these slides reflect how equity and anti-oppression work this year has been focused on sustainability, consistency, and capacity building in supporting students, educators, and school leaders across the system. Thank you for the opportunity to share this update tonight.
All right, next slide, please. Oh, this is perfect. So again, I'm Amy, one of the directors of instruction, and with me tonight is Brandon, and we'll be presenting on the mental health and social emotional learning updates. So next slide, please. So our presentation focus tonight will be about guiding the work around mental health and social emotional learning. We will be speaking about supporting social emotional learning and mental health in schools, and then what's next, continuing the journey. Next slide, please. The mental health in school strategy focuses on strengthening the everyday conditions that support well-being for all students. This work is grounded in compassionate systems leadership, including internal work, relationship-centered practice, and systems coherence so that adults are aligned in how they create safe and caring learning environments. Capacity building in social emotional learning, mental health literacy, and trauma-informed practice supports consistent preventative approaches across schools. In classrooms, universal mental health supports are embedded throughout the core competencies, First People's principles of learning, and the physical education curriculum. Together, these Tier 1 strategies align strongly with the VSB Education's planned focus on well-being, belonging, inclusion, and success for all learners, while building adult capacity and coherence across the system. Next slide, please. So what informs the work? How do we measure the impact? We use surveys and street-level data to inform and measure impact. The Middle Years Development Instrument, the MDI, and Youth Development Instrument, the YDI, provide essential student voice data about well-being, belonging, and connection, while the Student Learning Survey, SLS, and other surveys offer insight into the conditions of learning and school climate. Together, these sources help us identify patterns and system-level trends, but coherence comes from how we use them together rather than in isolation. Street-level data grounds this work by engaging students, families, and staff in meaningful conversations at schools. By intentionally considering survey data with lived experience, we build a more accurate, human-centered understanding of school context and strengthen inquiry-based, responsive decision-making across the system. So Brandon will now speak to us about the 3 pillars within the mental health in school strategies and the positive impact these initiatives have been making across our district.
Thanks, Amy. So, next slide, please. So in order to cultivate system-wide well-being, the social and emotional learning and mental health team continue to offer professional development opportunities that support compassion system leadership. These opportunities allow staff to be better equipped so that they can support the students that they work with every day in the areas of social and emotional learning, mental health literacy, and mental health literacy. Based on feedback from last year, we've redesigned our self-paced workshops to better support trauma-informed practice across the district and in our schools. This year, we've offered 5 self-paced workshops followed by an in-person session in February, where staff came together to reflect on their learning and discuss how it is being applied to their own professional practice when working with students. The 5 self-paced workshops we focused on this year were 10 ways to de-escalate a student's big behavior, Attention Matters, which focuses on ADHD, Beyond Worry, which focuses on anxiety, Development over Diagnosis, and Calm Classrooms. For the in-person Pro-D in February, our team focused on trauma-informed classrooms, where we had around 230 educators attend, including teachers, administrators, counselors, SSAs, and SSBs, who attended a full-day workshop that combined presentations, collaborative group work, and opportunities to discuss a variety of case studies. Next slide. Our SEL mental health team supports all staff and schools in a variety of responsive and collaborative ways. This includes online and in-person consultation, access to practical resources, support with lesson planning, and classroom observations, and opportunities for team teaching. We've been able to work alongside staff to support and supplement the important SEL and mental literacy work that is already happening in classrooms every day as we help to strengthen student well-being. To highlight one of the initiatives this year, we were able to train and support all elementary area counselors and secondary counseling department heads on the Mental Health Open Parachute platform. This has allowed all our counselors to engage with classes, groups of students throughout the school day around mental health literacy. In addition, we've collaborated with the District Principal of Indigenous Education Department to provide all area counselors with picture books to support the universal delivery of SEL and mental literacy through an Indigenous lens. Next slide, please. Around professional development, community supports our SEL and mental health team provide professional development opportunities at every Pro-D day each school year, as well as multiple lunch and learn sessions focused on social and emotional learning, mental health, and abuse prevention. We also collaborated with many community partners this year to complement what classroom teachers are already doing around SEL, mental health, abuse prevention, exploitation awareness, online safety, vaping, and substance use prevention. Next slide. Some of our resources and supports that we have are our SEL and mental health SharePoint site provides all staff in our district with easy access to downloadable SEL and mental health resources, lesson plans, and videos to use in their classrooms. We've also developed an SEL mental health resource guide that organizes and highlights all district supported initiatives, organized by grade level and identifying context for additional support. And again, these resources are available to all staff in our district. Next slide. So building on last year's momentum, we've continued to provide all staff with in-person and online consultation and team teaching opportunities. This year's focus has been on healthy relationships, abuse prevention, mental health literacy, and SEL programming. One initiative we like to highlight here is our Here for Peers program, which supports mental health in the classrooms while providing leadership opportunities for grade 11 and 12 students. This year, 75 students from 2 secondary schools were brought together and trained to deliver mental health leadership workshops to grade 6 and 7 students at 11 of their feeder schools. To date, they have supported approximately 30 classes and over 900 students. Social and emotional learning is embedded in all our subjects and shows up in everything we do. Our team has worked very closely with so many classes and schools this year, and we want to show a small sample of some of the great work that is happening in our classrooms every day around emotional regulation, empathy, and care. The students are a great example of what that looks like every day. So in saying that, I hope you enjoy a little glimpse of the great work that is happening in our schools. Next slide, please.
Welcome to Trafalgar Elementary School. Bienvenue à l'école de Trafalgar. Les émotions, c'est très bien parce que c'est dans le livre, il y a des calming down shows et il y a des spots et c'est très bien.
My favorite spot is the confidence spot because it helps me do sports at school and also at my soccer class too.
It's important to learn about emotions because when you're an adult, you know what you're feeling, and you know what to do later. When you're sad or angry, you can go back to your pieces. Mon préféré émotion sont le verre parce qu'ils calm you down. J'arrive à l'école et j'ai une worry. Je vais écrire ça sur un papier comme ça. From the tip of my finger to the middle of my palm, I can do this, I can be calm. When your red spots are in your palm, you can blow them away and then your red spot will go away. My favorite emotion is happiness because I like happiness.
So this is just some of the great work our teachers, support staff, and administrators are doing every day in schools to support mental health literacy and social and emotional learning. It was a pleasure to meet the students in Madame Chantel's grade 2 class at Trafalgar Elementary. They were so excited to share to me what they were learning, and I know some of them are watching right now online. So I want to say a big hello to them at home. And in closing, our SEL and mental health team continue and will continue for the rest of the year to support all schools in our district. Like Amy said before, we're using street data and a lot of our survey data to gather what we're hearing, talking to all of our administrators, teachers, and getting our student voice involved, and that'll guide our planning for next year. So we thank you, and before we move on, I think we're moving on to questions, so thanks again, everyone.
Thank you for team. Lots of work, very hard work. Thank you, appreciate it. Now, are there any questions related to the framework of enhancing student learning, human and social development updates? Any questions? Just Young.
Thank you very much. This absolutely brought a smile to my face, and it's really nice to see what you're doing with students. I have personal experience going to the DEI conference, the student-led DEI conference every year, and it's phenomenal. It's such a safe place for young people, but I also want to say that we saw as trustees at our School Trustee Association AGM recently the importance through the motions brought around human social development and the importance of teaching it in schools and it being the fabric of our curriculum. And so it is a priority for students or for trustees across the province, and it is gives me such pleasure to know that you are leading such great work. And on behalf of us trustees, thank you for the good work you're doing.
Thank you, Trustee Young. And any other questions? Trustee Ma?
Yeah, I have a question about the first presentation. So you talked about teacher resource support kits that teachers can borrow. How many of these kits do we have, and what's sort of the turnaround? Like, do we have a lot of demand for it? Do we need to make more? Like, how's that going?
The kits are kept with the EAO department, which I'll let Paul Sohal, the district principal for the EAO department, the acting principal, refer to that because he'll have the kits on site and he can see the kits when they're coming in and out.
So we have the borrowable kits that both the SOGI DRT and the anti-racism DRT lend out in conjunction with me. Sometimes teachers request them from me. We haven't seen any real lag in terms of like a kit's out and somebody else wants it and we don't have it available. That's not been reported to me at all this year. So we've been able to be responsive to the needs of teachers. Just today we finalized sending out some keepable kits to the elementary schools to supplement their collections. One of them was pictured there, and so we were able to get those out to requesting schools today. So I think we've been able to keep up with demand as yet.
Thank you. Questions? Yep.
Yeah, so how many kits? The shareable ones?
Of the keepable ones, there were 33 today, but the shareable ones we have, I'd say about 8 in each department that I've kind of seen in the shelves. So different. Some of them are more popular than others, right? So.
Okay, thank you. Next questions.
Thank you very much. I just was wondering, the mental health strategy in schools, are we mainly focused on like the education here, or does this also include like mental health for employees?
So through the chair, thank you for that question. So this is a comprehensive program. What we were speaking to tonight was more around students, building capacity with staff, and building that collective mental health knowledge in the district, not pertaining to employees.
Thank you. So seeing no, sorry, Trustee Ma.
Thank you very much. So in the second presentation, you talked about surveys to measure the impact, and the MDI, YDI, SLS, and the BCAHS was mentioned. So how do students who are ELL or students with learning challenges, how do they answer these surveys, or are they exempt?
Through the chair, thank you for that question. When they participate in surveys, we allow for any of the supports that they normally need to have for any of their other academic or social emotional learning. So there's lots of different solutions and opportunities for students to access those surveys in multiple ways. So the barriers to participation in those surveys are reduced through our supports that we have in place for all of our learners.
Okay, one last follow-up.
So follow-up to that is, so in terms of these surveys, would you say we have like 100% participation, 80%? Like, does it depend on the grade level?
Thank you for the follow-up through the chair. We are working to continue to increase participation. So we are looking at that every year through our work in FESL. And we are looking at ways to reduce more barriers. We do want to have as many voices represented as possible. We're not at 100%. So it is still an optional for the SLS, for the SLS, the MDL and the YDL. And SLS data, we're hoping to get that soon for participation rates this year. As it was mentioned before, that's ongoing right now.
All right, thank you. And assuming no more questions, right? Or like, because we are quite late.
So
one last one. Okay,
Chair,
last one.
It's not a question. It's actually on sort of to talk about today. The Vancouver declared today as Youth Mental Health Awareness Day. There was a proclamation today, and so this is a very timely topic today. And so thank you very much for coming to prepare.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Ma, to mention that. Seeing no other questions from the committee members, I'll move to adjournment. We have addressed like all items on agenda, and thank you everyone. And the live broadcast will end now, and the meeting will now be adjourned at 6:49. Sorry, a little bit late. Thank you.